With us now is Michael Allen. He was Special Assistant to President George W. Bush for National Security, also serving as the Senior Director for the Counterproliferation at the National Security Council. Michael, great to see you as always. Do you think that this pause is going to move talks forward?
Well, I guess it gives it a little bit of oxygen, but it doesn't really feel like we're bargaining for something lasting. I mean, the Qataris over the weekend, I think, suggested that maybe we do a 10-day circuit breaker. And, of course, it's better that we're not fighting rather than fighting, but I hope this all serves some larger purpose. If the ramp up for 12, 13 days was meant to broker or facilitate additional peace talks, then I guess it made sense. But for us to lurch back and forth makes me worried that we don't really have a strategy of what we're trying to achieve here. Now, I know the president wants to be flexible and see what he can get in each type of situation, but I'm looking for something a little bit more solid going forward.
So the question of what the president can get, is there a realistic alternative in dealing with Tehran other than pressure? Can something be achieved diplomatically as the U.S. sort of navigates the space of on again, off again?
So I don't think so. I think you've got to have pressure to enable diplomacy. And so at the very least, we'll continue a blockade, even if that won't yield immediate results. I think part of this, though, is also going to have to be resuming some sort of facilitation of commercial vessels through the Straits of Hormuz. If that's not a full, whole hog type of escort mission, then it's what we were doing, which is when we were, quote unquote, guiding ships through the Straits, trying to take them down the routes that were the least explosive, if you will. I think we have to be able to do that. We got to be able to negate this leverage that the Iranians have directly on this international waterway. And without it, I fear that we're going to be seeing the same movie over and over.
There is new reporting from CNN and the New York Times about the U.S. considering less of a response to Iran and less hostilities given the status of the U.S. munitions stockpile. There are concerns that it has been depleted. Should that limit what the president does next?
Yeah, well, it depends on how many we have. If we're truly in dire straits that we couldn't, in a sense, live up to what our contingency operations might be in Asia or elsewhere, then that should begin to dictate what our diplomatic and pressure strategies are going forward. But I think it's probably a classified number, but by all accounts, we don't have as many as we would like to have. Whether we have enough to go forward for a little while with a more intense bombing campaign to try and condition the Iranians to come forward and maybe reopen the straits at a lower cost, then by all means, let's do it. But it's hard to say unless we really know what's inside that black box and how frequently U.S. industry is able to replace the things we need the most.
President Trump, of course, denies that reporting. He says that the U.S. has enough, though he admits that he would want to see more sophisticated munitions in the arsenal. I want to ask you about what is happening in the Bab al-Mandab Strait and the Red Sea there, because the Houthis have recently targeted Saudi Arabian assets. They've restarted fighting after this years-long truce. Obviously, that conflict would threaten shipping in the Red Sea. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, well, I'm worried about it because it would be the opening of a second front, another geopolitical choke point that the world's goods, especially oil, would not be able to flow through. In particular, the way that the Saudis have been getting around the block in the Straits of Hormuz is to go down through the Red Sea through this particular passageway. Now, if the Houthis are going to continue or begin again bombing commercial vessels, oil and gas, very large container ships, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble where we are really under a serious stranglehold, and that the number one alternative to the Straits of Hormuz then in and of itself will be blocked. What this augurs for in the medium term, I think, is for us to get the Europeans maybe to help us again with Bab el-Mandeb while we try and deal with the Straits of Hormuz. I've seen diplomatic activity that they may want to get involved once they understand what the framework is going forward. But we need to get to a point where we recognize that that passageway in particular benefits the Europeans. And so I hope they would be more willing to help out.
There is a European ally that got sort of indirectly involved in the conflict with Iran recently, and that is Ukraine. It stuck 2 Russian vessels in the Caspian Sea, including what it says was a warship carrying military cargo from Iran. Iran says that a commercial vessel was also targeted. How significant is that supply route between Iran and Russia? And what does it tell us that Ukraine is now targeting it?
Well, I think it's a big deal because there are not so many ways that the Iranians can import everything that they need, just to sustain them, especially their weapon systems. I think we have the Russians and the Chinese that fly things in, but if we're taking away their maritime passageways and their ability to get goods to sustain some sort of pushback on us, or worse, to fund their proxies or arm their proxies around the region, then that's all the better. And frankly, the Ukrainians have given us a master class in how to try and deny your adversary weapons and money and to take out their economic wherewithal. So let's watch what they're doing closely and emulate as much as possible.
Michael Allen, thank you so much for the
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.